Hello, and welcome to Café New Canadians. It's a virtual event series where every week we discuss topics that matter to immigrants, international students, and newcomers to Canada, and all those who plan to move to Canada one day. Today's topic, the one that we'll be discussing today, is how introverted newcomers can use their strengths to settle in Canada. It's going to be a very exciting discussion, and we will be joined by three introverts and achievers who will not just share tips with you, but will also tell you about their experiences when they moved to Canada and how is it that they were able to settle over here. Now, Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians. It's a TV and web-based show, and you can watch us on Omni TV. That's where we air our episodes. You can also check out our content on our website as well as our YouTube channel. I'm Shruti Dargan. I'm your host for today, and I'm very pleased to welcome three amazing guests. We will be joined by Gabriela Casineanu, who is an author, and she will be talking about her book today, Quiet Lessons for the Introvert Soul. She's an award-winning author and coach. So of course, she'll be sharing lots of tips with us. We'll also be joined by Gerard Keledjian, who is the managing director at New Horizons Media Incorporated, and also the producer of our show, New Canadians. So we're very happy to have him with us today. And we will be joined by Sudeshna Sinha, an HR professional, who will, of course, share tips and also tell you that, how her profession has helped her overcome her own barriers that she faced and how she's been helping others as well. So thank you so much to all of our amazing guests who've been joining us today. Thank you for being here with us. Now, before we jump into the topic and start discussing, I'd like to just tell the people joining us today that if you're joining us on Zoom or on YouTube, where we're also live streaming this, you can share your questions with us in the Q&A tab on Zoom or in the chat section on YouTube. So please please have your questions flowing to us, and we'll keep asking our guest speakers to answer those during the session. So once again, a very warm welcome to all three guest speakers. How about we start with a quick round of introductions? Let's go around the virtual room. Maybe we can start with you, Sudeshna,
Sure.
And tell us a little about you.
Thank you, Shruti. That was a very warm and lovely welcome for all the participants and speakers. Hello, everyone. I'm Sudeshna, and I moved to Canada last year. I'm a human resources professional, and currently I'm working in a healthcare organization in Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you. Gabriela, how about you?
Hello, everyone. I was a newcomer in 2003 when I immigrated to Canada, and I will talk a little bit more about my journey. I came to Canada with a technical background, and I changed my profession here to coaching. And I started applying coaching in employment counseling. I have my own coaching business, and I'll talk more about this later on. Thank you.
And I can see your books right behind you. And one of
Yep.
these is which we will be talking about extensively today. And there's a little bonus that we have for our viewers, which also we will be talking about shortly. Gerard, moving to you.
Thank you.
Gerard, I think you're on mute.
Yes. I always keep reminding everyone to unmute themselves, and I need to remind myself as well. So I'm Gerard, as you introduced me, Shruti. I immigrated to Canada in 2010. It will be almost 10 years in December. And I'm a media professional journalist by background. My origin is from Lebanon, and I moved from Dubai here. And I'm also the producer and co-host of New Canadians. And we'll be sharing from my experiences and more from my journey, as Gabriela suggested as well, during the session.
So Gerard is with us for each of our sessions, just not on camera with us. Every time we come, we're on air over here on Zoom. Today, it's so lovely to have you join us. So let's get talking about the topic for today, which is all about someone being an introvert. Now, before I start talking about it, I think we should just have you clear exactly what being an introvert means, because there's so much negativity and a negative connotation that sometimes is associated with this word, and it's not really seen as a positive attribute by many. People take a lot of pride in saying that I'm an extrovert and this is how I am. a lot of people in my conversations with Gabriela, I've also learned that a lot of people who always thought that, they've been extroverts are actually introverts. And it's just amazing to be able to, understand how this works. So Gabriela, I think you're the best person on the panel today to tell us a little more about who qualifies as an introvert.
Introversion, it's a term that was introduced by psychologist Carl Jung in 2 centuries ago. And it was introduced also in a psychology test called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. And this test considers 4 dimensions. And one of the dimensions is introvert, extrovert. So on that spectrum, depending on where you are, what are your characteristics, you could be either one side or the other. Some of us are not at extremes, but that's the idea of introversion and extroversion. And if you think about the spectrum, actually an extreme extrovert and an extreme introvert, they have completely different characteristics, actually complementary.
Yeah. So now that you've explained who qualifies for as an introvert, what exactly are these differences that you're talking about from someone who's an extrovert?
Scientific studies show that we are born with certain characteristics. Our brain is differently wired for introverts and extroverts. There are long pathways in the brain for introverts, which makes us process information going through the long-term memory. So it takes longer for us to process information and come up with an answer than for an extrovert, where the pathway is shorter. That's why when someone talks to an introvert, while they can scan our brain, they will see a lot of things going on. From outside, they think like, we don't say anything, we don't know anything. So it's a difference between how we are perceived and how we actually are. So if you talk about characteristics, for example, introverts' energy is drained when they go into a social event because there is so much going on out there, and it really captures and drains all our energy. We get overwhelmed. An extrovert, for example, they gain energy by socializing with other people. So this is one of the differences that triggers other differences. Introverts like to collaborate. Extroverts like to confrontation. Introverts recharge their energy by being alone in nature. Extroverts feel that need to socialize, to go out, and they are focused on the outside world, while introverts are focusing more on the inside world, what's going on in their head, ideas, observing other people. They are very great observers. So there are so many differences. It's very hard to portray right now to talk about all of them. That's why if you talk about the book, Quiet Lessons for the Introvert Soul, when you will receive it, you can download a list of over 100 introvert strengths that I identified just by interviewing the people for that book. And there are many more.
So as I'm hearing you, I'm getting even more confused about my own personal qualities. Now, there's something that you said that makes me feel like I might be an introvert, but there are so many other things that make me feel like I might just be an extrovert. So we'll come to that. But before that, Gerard, why don't you tell us that, is there any particular quality about being an introvert that you've realized what is the reaction that you've received from people mostly when you say you're an introvert, or what is it about you that convinces you that you're an introvert?
Before a few years ago, I never saw it as an extrovert or introvert. I never saw things from that lens, and I even didn't know actually what each was and what were the differences. I think thanks to Gabriela, I'm a more expert now. For me, I would say I used to think I'm a shy person, so that's how I used to see myself, and others maybe kind of outgoing or not shy. When Gabriela, I think when we met, and she tells it in the book actually, when we met at a job fair, and she was presenting about her book, and she gave some, briefly, she explained, and I started noticing that I am like that. I have these few traits, and then when she insisted to interview me for the book, and I realized that I am an introvert. Like everything that's written there, I am an introvert. Yes. Other than being shy, I would say one of the other things is that I take time to socialize with someone, and so they have to be patient as well. But once I get that initial stage, I get very close to people, and this reflects on everything. By the way, business relationships, other relationships, and the more I know now myself and about introverts, extroverts, the more I see these things in others as well. Even sometimes business relationships don't succeed because the other partner would be a very strong extrovert, and then no matter what I do, I push back. I backtrack a bit, I would say.
So what I'm hearing, patience, trust, these are strong virtues. Coming to you, Sudeshna, why don't you tell us a little? Have you, like Gerard hadn't even given it a thought, and I guess that's true for most people. We don't really, unless there's something that is presented to us, or we're in a discussion like that, wherein we are actively trying to understand whether or not we're an introvert or an extrovert. I don't remember giving it a thought. So have you given it a thought earlier, or?
Sure, that's a very valid question because, it's a lot about having that time for introspection and really trying to understand who you are as a person. And for me, the journey has been, I think it started sometime in my childhood, because all along growing up, I have heard some variation of this statement that, oh, you're so quiet. Right? So there are different variations, either directly to me or to my parents. And that gets you thinking that, okay, I'm quieter than a lot of people around me. What's the reason behind that? Right? So you start thinking about what makes you different from people around you. Yeah. And one habit that I've had since childhood is that I like to read a lot. So as I grew up, of course, when I was in school, I never knew about the concepts of introverts or extroverts. But when I went to college, and especially in an environment where you're doing an MBA, right, where you're in a big classroom with a lot of people and where class participation is mandatory, those kind of environments really get you thinking, right? So that's where I came across a lot of resources to understand myself better. I came across MBTI, right? So I got my own assessment done. So that helped me really understand what my core characteristics are.
Yeah.
And of course,
I'll just request you to, what would MBTI be? If you could just tell us a little about that. Or
so Gabriela made a mention to the Myers-Briggs type indicator, right? So it's a psychometric tool, which is nothing but a self-assessment test. So all that you have to do is answer a series of questions based on your understanding of yourself. And at the end of it, it tells you what is the type of your personality. Where one of the biggest examples is whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, right? And then it lists different characteristics that if you're this type, these are probably your preferences. So that's something that set me on that journey to discover myself as an introvert. And the biggest revelation actually came when I read Quiet by Susan Cain. So that's where I think that shift in the mind happened, where it was no longer about what is wrong with me, rather, wow, this is me. I have such amazing qualities as an introvert. So yeah.
So being shy, being quiet, and you rightly pointed out that, in one's growing up years, these are two terms that one hears a lot. So as introverts, or maybe you're just classified as an introvert because you're shy, you're quiet, so naturally you have to be an introvert. Gabriela, would that be true? Is that true for everyone who's quiet and shy, they are introverts? Or can, my initial doubt about myself now hearing all of this, can one be both?
First of all, shy, it's not only for introverts. There are both introverts and extroverts who are shy. And this refers to something, to a characteristic that, to a behavior actually, that you developed. Someone maybe in your childhood in a certain situations that make you become shy, but not necessarily because you're an introvert. As I said, extrovert can be shy as well. Quiet, thinking a lot, these are characteristics of introverts. Can we be both? It depends from which direction you are looking. If you're looking from inside out, you cannot be both extrovert and introvert. But if someone is looking at you, they can perceive you as an extrovert. Like sometimes I'm doing workshops and I'm very animated and I'm talking and people don't believe I'm an introvert. And I say, don't ask me how much time I need to recharge my batteries after. And you see me this way because I'm talking about subjects that are really, I'm passionate about them. They are meaningful. And when we, as introverts, we connect with something that's meaningful to us, the energy comes from inside and people see that energy, they think, oh, you're an extrovert. No, I'm not. I'm still an introvert. But that energy that comes from connecting with something that is very important and meaningful to me, that it's projected outside. So coming back to what I said at the beginning, we are born with those pathways in the brain that makes us extrovert and introvert. We can learn behaviors. I can learn public speaking, and I learned along the way, but it doesn't make me an extrovert if I speak in public. Also, what I noticed in time, it's kind of a hero journey of the introverts. More we put ourselves in situation out of comfort zone, we develop new skills, we develop our personality, our way of doing things. So we kind of getting closer to that center. We don't cross over to become an extrovert. We still need time to recharge our batteries. But we become, like, I have a friend who is a therapist. She's like, people who are doing this become more functional.
Yeah.
Functional from the way they behave in the society. You can still be functional. I had someone who read this book, Quiet Lessons for the Introvert Soul, and she sent me a message. She said, I'm 65 years old, and I was so happy that I read your book that the next morning I wake up for the first time in my life thinking, I'm normal. And she was happy that she figured out that she's actually normal. The whole life she thought that she's different. Yeah. And I felt that way as well. When I grew up, I have a sister who is an extrovert. So I have that conflict very close to me between extrovert and introverts. All the time, I was thinking that I'm weird, I'm strange, until I stumble about the concept of introverts and extroverts.
Sometimes I joke with Gabriela, by the way, that I'm an extroverted introvert.
Yeah. So a question comes to my mind now. Do introverts shy away from asking questions? Because I don't see our introvert participants today asking too many questions already. So I would request, one, an answer to this, and two, an appeal from your side to the participants that, you know, they shouldn't really shy away from asking questions today. This is their chance to engage and, you know, gain a lot more about introverts.
I can answer that. By the way, online format, the way it is now chat, is a very introvert friendly way of asking questions. So you don't need to stand up in a big hall where there are like 200, 300, 500 people. You just type your question. Even you can type anonymously, so even better. I had that issue with in my journey in Canada. Where whenever I used to go to events and to conferences, seminars, I would wait, or I would think actually about the question till the question time was over, or someone else asked a similar question, or sometimes even the same question, and I used to miss my chance of asking. What worked better for me, and even sometimes now it works better for me, I usually get selective and wait. If it's a panel discussion, for example, I will wait till the end. The panelists who interest me, I approach them one-on-one, and I wait, of course, I approach them one-on-one and ask them about something they mentioned during the discussion, and that would be the starting point. I find it very easier to kind of build that the relationship that way, or network that way, than just stand and be the first one to ask a question.
So that anxiety that you're talking about, there's so you mentioned that someone can ask questions anonymously as well. That is something that we would encourage to all the participants. This session is for you, is for us to have a discussion around this topic and to understand that these aren't really negative attributes. And how is it that you can actually, the title says it all, how is it that you can use these strengths to settle in Canada and in every sphere of your life? So I see a question over here. It says, as an introvert, I feel quite fake while asking questions. Now, it's less of a question, more of a statement. But Gabriela and Sudeshna, what are your thoughts about that?
I think you feel fake if you think about yourself. If you think that you are in a context like this one, where there are many other people, chances are the questions that you have might be another person had as well, or even if it's not, the answers that you will receive might help the other people too. So the question is, do you want to help others and yourself by asking that question? If you do that, does it still make you feel fake? So the idea is being more assertive, because in an environment like this, the answers of people who are more vocative, that ask those questions, so those answers will come up, and your questions won't come up. So you won't get as much as the other people who are asking questions. Sometimes in my workshop, I get the same kind of treatment. People don't ask questions. And at one point I stop and I ask, do you know everything? You don't need to know anything more? At that point they laugh and they start asking questions. So the same thing for you. If you think that you want to know more, please ask us.
Yeah, definitely. Sudeshna, would you like to add something to that?
Sure. I think one reason why asking questions becomes difficult is because of the fear that maybe you'll ask a stupid question or you may not be heard. But what has worked well for me is when I substitute fear for curiosity. So if you're curious about that question, if you genuinely want to know about that subject, that completely overpowers the nervousness or the fear that you may have at that point of time. So it's something beyond that fear, and that really works.
I'll stay with you. Sorry, Gerard, please go ahead.
One other tip I would give as well, because specifically for newcomers, because our audience is are newcomers and immigrants, it is important to be visible and to show your expertise. So one tip I've heard from others as well that works very well, if you're going to a conference or to a seminar and you know the speakers, or you know more or less you know the topics and what will be spoken, you can prepare a few questions in advance and you can write them down. Then during the session itself, you won't have that pressure on you. You just read your question.
Yeah, that's a good tip. That's definitely something that helps a lot. I see, Sudeshna, I'll come back to you for a question over here, which I see lots more about networking. That is exactly what we'll come to next. But here's a question about working remotely. As an HR professional, you've interacted with lots of people. Chetan is asking us that, is the remote working scenario a blessing in disguise for the introverts? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think it has given us a lot of time, because we are saving a lot of time on commute. So especially for me, this has given me time to pursue my hobbies as well. So reading, for example. And it again, as an introvert, it's something that works better for us, because the interactions have reduced and you're able to focus on your work in a quiet environment. And as an introvert, we work best when we are in a quiet environment, free of distractions, right? So of course, there are different types of distractions at home, but somehow it's easier to control the environment at home than at office. So it's definitely something that I'm enjoying for sure.
Now, the more I hear about interaction, someone, somehow deriving strength from actually being in a quiet space or being quiet themselves, there's a lot that comes to mind about networking, because in a country like Canada, any newcomer will, of course, maybe a million times they'll hear about the importance of networking, the importance of letting everybody else know about you rather than you talking about yourself. It matters a lot more if others have good things to say about you. But that doesn't happen without you making the effort to actually introduce yourself. Now, before that, again, before we jump to networking, something else that comes to mind, which I feel is necessary that we discuss that before we jump to networking, would be social discussions, chit chats, interactions. Now, there are a few things that I read in your book, Gabriela, which got me thinking that, there was a line that I read somewhere which said that introverts are social beings. So it's somehow like a contradictory thought. I'd like to know from you, can you define exactly how introverts are social beings, but they derive that happiness just in a very different way?
It depends what you mean by social.
Yeah,
What I mean
exactly.
by introverts are social beings, meaning that as introverts, we crave connections with we crave to connect with other people. We don't connect in the same way as the extroverts are doing, but we want that type of connection. We also want it at our own pace, so we're not available for connection all the time, and also find our way of connecting with others. So we still want to connect with people, but we're doing in a totally different way than extroverts are doing it. That's a difference between the social part of introverts and extroverts.
So what I gather is that it's not the problem with chit chats. It's not that introverts wouldn't like to really mix with people, mingle with people, or talk to them, but it has to be something that matters. It has to be an important enough conversation. Uh, with respect to questions also, I mean, the fact that it has to be an important, you need to feel that desire inside to really have that curiosity. These are the different things that would largely differentiate an extrovert and an introvert in how they socially engage with people. Am I right here?
So you've actually touched upon a myth that introverts don't like to mingle or meet other people.
Yeah.
I think it's all about the stimulus, right? So how much of a stimulation is that environment creating?
Yeah.
Introverts love to form deep connections and have deep, meaningful conversations, right? So an introvert any day prefer a more intimate dinner over going to a loud and noisy party with a lot of people, right? So it's all about that external stimulation. The lesser the volume of the stimulation, the better introverts interact with others. It works the other way for extroverts. So they prefer an environment that's more stimulating.
But then networking in Canada is done both ways. There's also one-on-one, how you can go and actually speak to somebody. And it's also, when you engage with groups all together. So let's jump to that now and, discuss. I see a lot of questions over here. I can maybe read out a few to you just on networking. Veronica is asking us, do you have tips that help introverts with networking? Another person is asking us that, humble bragging is very important these days. And they find it very difficult to talk about themselves. It's almost as if they're suffering from imposter syndrome. So how do you cater to that? Let's hear it from Sudeshna. If you'd have any thoughts on that, then we'll go to Gabriela and Gerard as well.
Sure. So like you rightly said, networking happens two ways, right? One is your one-on-one conversations and the other is through events. So typically as introverts, our preference is one-on-one conversations. We actually enjoy those connections, right? And in Canada, of course, networking is very important in forming those relationships and getting to know more people, right? And one of the biggest changes that an introvert has to accept is that it's about a shift in your mindset. It's not about looking at networking as selling yourself or like it's a dirty word. But again, coming back to curiosity, that's been my favorite go-to thing, right? So one thing that I always think before I go for any interaction is, you never know. You never know how interesting this conversation is going to be. You never know who you might meet. You never know what similarities you might discuss with somebody. I might be meeting someone who is from across the world, from where I come from, but we might end up having a lot of common interests, right? So it's about really thinking that I'm genuinely going out there to know more about somebody else. Everybody has their own unique story, their own unique journey. How can I connect with that person? Being an introvert, listening comes naturally to us, right? We are very good listeners. We are really good at asking questions. So those are the strengths which we can play to our advantage when we are going out and meeting people. Let's not call it networking. So yeah, that was about the one-on-one networking. With events, again, like Gerard mentioned, that having a list of questions ready, doing your own research. Research is, again, something that we are really good at. So do your own research about what the event is about. Find out, if you can, who are the participants who might be coming to that event. And since you know the topic already, so you can already have a list of questions, right? A questions not just related to the event, but have some ice-breaking questions ready for the people that you meet, so that it's not that you're sitting awkwardly next to somebody, not knowing what to say, but you have the questions ready in your mind. So the more prepared you feel, the more confident you are in approaching somebody else.
Definitely. Gabriela, what would you like to add to that?
First, I have a word that was given to me by one of the interviewees for the book. Instead of not calling networking, reframe networking. It's not, to me, networking is something without an objective, without something meaningful to it. Why should I connect with someone? But when you attach a meaning to it, I want to find information about the job market, let's say. Then I go out and ask people. I become curious and I have questions to ask. So I will still network, but for me it will be just to look for information. And I look for information in a more strategic way. And Gerard is very good at that. I let him talk about how he's networking. He's an expert at networking at events. So, but what I want to say is, find something meaningful, an objective, an intention meaningful to you, and go to that event with that intention in mind. I want to meet at least 3 people, to learn something about this topic. I want to, so give yourself an objective, something to focus your mind on. Otherwise, as an introvert, your mind will focus on everything else around and you get overwhelmed and you might want to leave. Yeah. But when you have an objective, you focus on something that it's meaningful to you because you set that objective, and you will be more assertive in finding and getting out with what you want. This is one of the tips. Another one is helping others. It's not only about yourself. When you go to an event or when you meet someone, you can just start a conversation with a question. That's the advice that I was given when I was very shy at my first networking event in Canada. And the lady who gave me the advice was like, just say hello. How are you doing? Or what do you think about this event? So when you ask a question, you take the attention out from yourself, you put it on the other person. As an introvert, you're a very good listener. So you will be able to listen. And while you're listening, you can formulate whatever you want to say next. So it gives you time to figure out what to say. And because you're listening, the other person will feel good because they talk about themselves. And at one point, they will stop talking about themselves and they will ask about you. And at that point, you will just answer the question. You're not talking about you. You don't force yourself to talk about yourself. You just answer someone else's question because they want to know about you. If you don't answer that question, they won't know. So this is how you engage in a natural dialogue. So remove that pressure that you have to say something. Just ask a question. And I had something else. Go to events you're interested in. because
Definitely.
you have something to talk about with people at that event. What did you think about the topic? What did you get out of this presentation? Do you know other events? So start getting curious about what's going on there. And when you put your attention outside of you, you don't have as much pressure on yourself and you feel more relaxed to have a conversation with someone.
Definitely. Now, Gerard, as Gabriela was speaking, I was getting reminded of the chapter that mentions you in the book, and your entire journey. And something that stood out there was about how you also, now struggle is not a word that I'd like to use, but you hesitated a little initially when it came to networking, and then you almost mastered strategic networking to the point that now you call yourself a connector. Why don't you elaborate a little on that and tell us about your journey?
When I came to Canada, as most newcomers, I would say, I didn't know networking. So it was a new or unfamiliar concept to me. Even the name networking, initially I connected it to IT, like networks. That's the way the word is used where I came from. And initially, my networking attempts, when I started kind of getting to know more about networking, were a failure, I would say, because I put on myself unnecessary pressure, as many others do. I see that uh, because of the fact that we are newcomers and we want to get a job or get back into our profession as quickly as possible, right? That's a very good goal, and we should go towards that. However, it doesn't happen overnight. So that additional unnecessary pressure complicates things. So the minute I realized that when I'm going to meet someone or when I'm going to an event, I put aside that I'm not going to ask for a job, or I'm not going to, even with the expectation that I will get 10 business cards exchange or whatever. Just I went to the event, I enjoyed the event, I listened, I mingled among people, because at conferences or other events, you take coffee, I don't know, there are breaks, people sit next to you. So use those chances to just talk to people, know about them, know about their work. You can find so many common things to talk about, uh, non-controversial, kind of stay away from problematic topics, obviously, but you can find so many things to talk about. And the more you talk, the more you will realize that, hey, you can ask about that, you can inquire about that. And you will have chances of talking about yourself as well. They will ask, you will mention few things. And that's the secret of networking. It's that building a network of relationships and contacts over time that know about you, know who you are, know what you can do, and then they can trust you. So that down the road, whenever the right moment comes, they either ask for your help, or refer a job to you, or refer another person or business, or whatever. The challenge is that because we are newcomers, we kind of need to do this as quickly as possible. That's the challenge. But I would say the more long-term vision you give it, or the more you look at it from a long-term lens, the less pressure you will have on yourself, and just go and not that sell your services or sell yourself, but let people know what you can do and what you can achieve. And this could be done as well. This is not the only way to do that. Networking is not just by going to events, and I know we're focusing on that, but one of the ways I network as well is through using social media, and I do it strategically, in the sense that uh, initially it was Twitter in my case, but later more and more LinkedIn. I showcase things I'm involved in. I talk about things I'm maybe producing, people I'm meeting, stories I'm working on, or initiatives I'm kind of pursuing. And of course, there has to be value to what you're presenting, but that builds that trust as well. That builds that network, and either people approach you. In my case, many people have approached me through LinkedIn, and many fruitful collaborations have resulted as because of that. And in some other cases, I've approached people, but because they've known about me indirectly and directly by following my posts and seeing me on LinkedIn or on Twitter or whatever, I haven't needed an effort to break the ice. We already know. We met for the first time, but as if we know each other for 20 years. And there's the trust and everything.
So it's all about finding that right medium for your expression, and then being very strategic about it so that the whole process doesn't really end up being overwhelming for you, and it's engaging. There's so much more that you learn in it without actually it becoming a hassle. Now, a question that someone asked over here is that all of you spoke about attending events and then ways in which one can participate in a conversation, engage in it. But does it come across as rude if an introvert does not speak a lot at a networking event, if you're going and then you're asking and then you don't interact so much? In a way, are you coming across as rude in any way?
To whom?
To the person that you might be speaking to or others around you that, you possibly didn't engage so much.
I mean, I can answer to that as well. I won't see it rude or not rude, but if you're going to an event or in a social setting, it might be a wedding. You're networking with the person sitting next to you on the table. You can't listen all the time. So I know listening is a very important skill as an introvert, and I listen. I'm a very good listener. However, you're there as well to talk. You don't need to talk all the time or half of the time. But you need that opportunity as well to give your opinion about things, whatever the other person is talking about, to answer their questions and to showcase your expertise, right? So if you're quiet all the time, then it's like you want to win the lottery, but you don't buy a ticket. So you need to show your expertise so that people trust you, know about you, and then at some point they give you either work or refer you to someone who has that opportunity. So I wouldn't say rude or not rude, but it's important to at least say something.
Can I share something
Please do.
my first, I guess, days or weeks in Canada?
Sure.
I found somewhere on the internet that I can send out my resume to 60 agencies and companies and for $16. And I did that, and someone called me. And he was very interested in my resume, and he started talking and talking and talking, and I was listening and not saying anything, just listening. And at one point he stopped. He's like, "Are you still there? Are you still listening?" And I realized at that moment that even after when I talk to people, there is a certain way of listening where you listen to the other person, but also you make them aware that you're listening. Maybe you heard people when you're talking, they say, aha, yeah, I understand. They let you talk, but they still let you know that that you're listening. You let them know that you're listening. So this way you can come across of someone weird because you show that you're listening, and active listening is a very valuable skill, actually. So don't shy away of doing it. Just do it properly.
With what you just said, and with what Gerard mentioned earlier, you've actually answered a question that I was about to ask you, which came on YouTube, which was about exactly how to network in person vis-a-vis on the phone as well. Now, another interesting question that has come to us via YouTube is, how did all of you as introverts prepare for this session? Did you in any way feel overwhelmed before you had to join the session? Just your brief thoughts on that.
Oh yes, so yeah, I actually read the book which Gabriela has written, which is Introverts and How Do You Use Your Strengths for an Effective Job Search. So when I came to Canada last year, I had actually gone to a book launch event that Gabriela was having for this very book. And that's how that's how I got to know about the book and Gabriela. And again, it's an amazing resource for introverts because it tells you how do you use your own strengths, not just for your job search, but for networking as well. So definitely recommend that. And so that's one thing that I touched upon before this session. And Susan Cain's book, Quiet, is something I keep going back to again and again. So just touched upon that. Again, it's all about preparation, right? Preparation really makes you feel comfortable before you have to go out for a session. So that's what I did.
So the title of this webinar today also said that, how introverted newcomers can use their strengths to settle in Canada. Sudeshna, why don't we'll stick with you for this one. Tell us a little about, maybe the top 3 concerns that you had, or when you were new over here in Canada. What was your journey like? And some struggles, for the lack of a better word, I'd use that word right now, but any struggles that you had initially, and how were you able to overcome that using these strengths as an introvert?
Sure.
Maybe your favorite one, or top 2, top 3, whatever you'd like to share with us right now.
So initially, of course, the concern was that when you move to a new country, you don't know too many people, right? You may have your close friends, but not too many people in your own industry where you're looking for a job. So, of course, there was a lot of concern because of the uncertainty, not knowing when would you end up getting a job, not knowing how many opportunities would turn your way. And as an introvert, there is always that anxiety about meeting more people or going to the networking events, right? So the struggle definitely was about going through my own journey of changing that mindset about how I was approaching networking events, and really discovering on a hit and trial basis that what works best for me, where I'm most comfortable, I can be my best self to go out and meet people. So it was really about trying out different types of events, going to see what type of audience or what type of format works best for me, and also connecting with people one-on-one, either through coffee chats or just having a phone conversation. And that's where I came to a realization, okay, one-on-one conversations work best for me, right? And even so events are also important because it gives you a wider scope of what's happening out there and what are the type of people out there. And again, a change that I brought about was, how did I think about networking, right? So it was not just about quantity, but more about quality. So it was not about going and meeting 10, 15 people at every event, but even if I connected with just 1 or 2 people and had a deeper conversation, then I considered that as a success for myself, right? And this is one amazing thing that's been happening in all the events, is that you connect to everybody who is in the room through LinkedIn. So even when I was in that state, that, fear of missing out, what if I missed out on meeting a great person, I knew I had connected with everybody on LinkedIn. So I can always go back home after the event, check who else was there at that event, and then reach out to them that, what, we attended this event together, but we didn't get a chance to connect. So, why don't we catch up now? So again, leveraging an event to go back to a one-on-one conversation rather than trying to talk to more and more people in the event, right? Yeah. And also the whole research and preparation part, really. So researching more about the topic and trying to find out about that. So that really helped with the whole journey.
Yeah. As everyone was sharing things earlier as well, I was just thinking that anyone who comes across this session, even later on YouTube, no one can now say that introverts don't like to talk, because we are joined by 3 amazing individuals over here who are opening their hearts, sharing their experiences, informing other introverts about how they too can use these strengths. And it's just wonderful. Nobody now has the right to say that introverts don't like to talk. We've achieved that for sure. Gabriela, coming to you. Tell us a little about your initial days here, or initial years, and in your journey, how were you able to use your strengths?
So I came to Canada with a very big idea of changing profession. I didn't want to continue in the same technical field. So I knew from the beginning that I don't want to join the Professional Engineers of Society of Ontario, and I didn't want to go through what an engineer will normally do. And what I did, I used my strategic thinking. Introverts are very good strategic thinkers that look at big picture. So I look at my big picture and I said, I want first to figure out what I want. So I gave myself a deadline for that. And second, I'm like, until I figure out, I have to focus on my short-term and mid-term strategy. Short-term was to find a job because I came with not much money and I needed a job. I said, I want a job in 2 months. And in 2 months, I had my first job. And then I wanted a second job where I almost doubled my salary. The first one was customer service. Second was quality assurance in engineering. So I was using my background. And while I was in the second position, I start working on my objective to change careers. And what I did, I looked back when I came to Canada in the first 2 weeks. I met 2 coaches and I had no idea what coaching is or the profession of coaching. But one of them said that she was a statistician and she likes photography and now she's a coach. And I really connected with her with the idea that, oh, actually I can go in a totally different direction, not what the economy needs, what the courses are out there, but I can look inside. So I start creating a list of things that I would like to have as a career of my dreams. And at one point when I had the deadline, I start looking at my list and I figured out that it's coaching. What helped me in that initial phase was being curious about what is happening here. I didn't know, I knew only 2 people and they were on their own busy already. So I have to figure out how to find a job here, what I can do to showcase my expertise, to find companies. So I did a lot of research online. Introverts are very good at research. Also, what I did, I tap into the human factor, and I talk more about that in my book, Job Search. Introverts leverage your strengths for an effective job search. I didn't go to events. Besides the event I already told you about. Yes. I'm not someone, even now I'm not going to too many events. What I did, I connected one-on-one because I know that's how I project a better image. So I was reaching out to people to ask questions. I started using LinkedIn when I learned about it. Even now, LinkedIn is a powerful resource. I started using social media, and actually social media helped me a lot to go from shy to be more open and noticing that, oh, people don't react strange to what I'm saying. So I start sharing more. And I start sharing where I'm going, and I start getting feedback from people. So that helped me grow just by connecting with people, talking about the social aspect of introverts. So this is my journey here. And at one point, I figured out what I want. I took coaching courses and I started on the coaching path.
Yeah. Gerard, coming to you now, of course, when our viewers who are joining us today, we will be sharing the link to Gabriela's book, and they will be able to read about your journey more extensively in the book. So I wouldn't want you to give a lot of, I wouldn't ask you to give away too much information right now. Let them read that in the book. But tell us a little about, your journey with respect to the fact that you also said that you were a little hesitant about mixing with people and were able to overcome that. And then you chose something which is New Canadians, which is a TV and web show, which requires you to go out, connect all the more. It's not a profession wherein one can quietly be in their space. How has that worked out for you?
It worked out very well because one of the strengths that introverts have are their passion. So when they are passionate about something, they will be superheroes for that particular thing, right? So in my case, because my first 18 months in Canada were really very full of struggle, I would say, because I came to Canada thinking I was fully prepared, and I soon, around 3 weeks after, I realized that I was totally unprepared, and kind of got into a cycle of confusion. So long story short, I did volunteer, and I did strategic volunteering, I would say. I made friends and I socialized, yes, but I also volunteered in my area of expertise, which is media. By that time, I had realized that yes, it's a struggle for every newcomer, but there's a lot you can do as well to minimize the struggle or and make use of all the resources, help, and services that are needed. And though initially my goal was not to continue producing that show, but I discovered my passion that I like, naturally, I like helping people. And when I saw the impact of my work and how I can use the medium of video and audio together and through TV that enters every home and by uh, adopting a multi-platform approach, I can help other people at least to avoid my mistakes or the mistakes of my team members. If we can do that, that would be a big success. And the program itself connected me to the whole world of newcomers, organizations serving newcomers, and uh, and uh, and I embraced it because I realized that yes, I am a good storyteller, but I'm also passionate about newcomer integration. I want to help people. And how can I help as many people as possible through TV, through helping them get the concept of networking, for example, or mentoring, or because it's very overwhelming when you come to Canada, right? They tell you go network, but no one explains to you what networking is, or no one explains that you can take a bridging program and instead of struggling maybe for 12 months, maybe you just struggled for 2 months. And so explaining those concepts and through my work, because I'm passionate about my work and that supports me, I kind of overcome that the no, I wouldn't say barriers, but the challenge of meeting people or chatting with them, let's say in conferences and or seminars, or because I don't have an issue about finding a topic that we can discuss, we can chat about, right? Immigration itself gives all the topics. My work, or in some cases, they talk about my work. So it's good to hear, obviously, testimonials from them and appreciation. And so that directs the conversation. And that's my way of doing networking as well. Take it long term and take it as if you're planting seeds in the soil. If the soil is good, where you will get a harvest somewhere down the road. But don't put that pressure that you planted the seed today, it has to grow tomorrow. It might not grow. Some seeds might not grow at all, but wherever in your soil, in your field, the soil is good, you will harvest very good results at the end. And just focus on building that trust, making connections, and use your listening, your strategic thinking. In my case, I'm very strategic thinker, and I'm using all of this now that I know them even more. I discovered myself more, my strengths as an introvert. I use them more to achieve all those goals.
The
Can
common
I just
thread.
quickly
Yeah,
add
please.
one thing?
Sure.
So what Gerard said, it's exactly something that someone told me in my early months here as well, that networking is more about farming. It's not about hunting, right? So it just takes the pressure off your head, immediately puts the focus on the long-term goal rather than the short-term goal of seeking a job. So absolutely spot on, Gerard.
One last, I know we're over the
That's
time,
okay.
but one just quick last tip as well. One mistake that newcomers do, introverts or extroverts, they only network to get their first job and then they stop, which is a big mistake. Networking never ends, should never end. You should continue building networking and building those relationships, making these connections inside your company where you're working or outside.
You know, common thread that I see, besides the fact that you're all introverts, is also that you're going all out to help others. Now, with New Canadians, Gerard, you've made sure that, you know, all those experiences that possibly you had to face, or all those struggles that you faced, or other people that you knew went through, maybe so many more would not have to go through that because we share so many resources, we give out that valuable information. Gabriela, you've been, your books are proof that, this amazing information that you share with everyone, the tips that you've put out, and through this book as well, I've read it, and of course I can vouch for it that, one reads so much more about introverts sharing their experiences. And Sudeshna, you chose a profession of being in the HR profession altogether, which is about, working so closely with people. So I'll just quickly, I know Gerard mentioned that we're a little over time. We'll just go once again through the room for your one last tip. And at the same time, Sudeshna, I'll begin with you over here. I'd like to know from you in the HR space, how has that worked out for you when you interact with people and you yourself are an introvert? Have you come across an instance wherein you were able to spot that in a job seeker who came and you interviewed? You were able to see that maybe they were a little uncomfortable, quiet initially. Were you able to spot that? Were you able to help them out? Tell me a little about that.
Sure. I think being in the HR profession as an introvert, one of the few strengths that really work in our favor is, again, active listening and the love for having deeper conversations on a one-on-one basis, right? So again, another thing which I'll pick from Gabriela's book, she talks about, trusting your own intuition. So we're really good at sensing how the other person is feeling, how comfortable they are, and changing our attitude or our words based on how we read the other person, right? So that's something that really comes in handy in being an HR professional. Trust your intuition, and that really helps in building long-term relationships with your employees and certainly making other job seekers comfortable as well. So yes.
For sure. Now, Gerard, of course, you've shared some amazing tips already. I'll come to Gabriela. And there's also a question I see over here by Sherdil, but we've largely talked about that we spoke at length about anxiety. And Sherdil mentions that, sometimes extrovert individuals also tend to have a social anxiety. So how can one address that? Gabriela, we've spoken about it, but in your maybe a few last tips that you'd like to share, if you'd like to also tackle that.
Something that you will hear from cognitive behavior therapy, if you want, or that positive thinking that people are talking about. You can talk yourself out of the anxiety, because what causes the anxiety, it's a thought that you have in your mind. If you're thinking, oh, I don't feel comfortable here, and you're focusing on that thought, you will get more anxiety, you put more stress on yourself. So you are just going to that cycle, downward spiral. But when you shift from what can I do here? What can I learn? What question can I ask? Who I can help? You shift from that inner dialogue, negative dialogue that you have in your mind, into something that it's out there that you become curious about, talking about Sudeshna, curiosity. You will see that you cannot be anxious and curious at the same time. So you have that choice, and it's your ability to make the shift. It's behaviors that you can build in time. It's not natural. Negative thoughts come very natural to all of us. We have to make an effort to change them into positive. So it's something that I would recommend. Shift from how do you feel right now, if you feel that anxiety, to what actually can I learn here? What could be positive about being here? What can I do? Gerard was talking about helping. Introverts love to help others. Who I can help? Yeah. And I want to add a few things. Join a group. I joined a group of Romanian Canadians when I came here. It was an online group, and I contributed, even if I was a newcomer, I contributed a lot to that group. And by contributing, people start knowing me and start building connections. So you don't have just to absorb all the information that is out there. As a newcomer, yes, you're new to this environment, but you have a lot to offer. So tap into those inner strengths that you have, tap into your knowledge, into your way of thinking. Other people might not have the same opinion like you. So there are a lot of ways to contribute. Volunteering is another way. And talking about volunteering, if you feel hard to find a volunteering position, create your own. I started the Toastmasters Club in English French. There was no English French Toastmaster Club at the time. I started Immigrant Writers Association. I give myself leadership roles, even without having leadership training, and I built my skills. And I noticed that introverts are very good in one-on-one conversation, especially if it's a meaningful topic. We feel good in the present as each other. We are opening up and have fun and have very interesting conversation. And on the other spectrum, when you become a leader, do a workshop. You know a lot about your profession. Find a way to do a workshop, especially now you can use Zoom for free. You can do a seminar about a topic that you're expert or you want to share with other people. This is an indirect way to build relations. Put yourself out there so people will reach out to you. And you increase your visibility and you expand your comfort zone as well. Because more you're doing, answering the question of how did you prepare for this? I did so many workshops that now that I know that I have to come to a live event, I'm not anxious anymore. So your comfort zone will expand. More you're doing it, better you become to it.
And I think, it's not just the tips that all three of you have shared over here today. It's so much more. One can just learn so much through your experiences and how you carry yourself right now. And, it shows in how you talk that you're able to reflect exactly what you may have gone through earlier, and you've come a far, far long way from that for sure. Gerard, I did not want to take away the opportunity from you to maybe share a last advice that you have. So if there's something, and then of course we are a little over time for sure.
I would. I shared so many tips, and when they will get the link to the book as well, they can read my chapter and the other chapters. They will get so many other tips. One maybe quick tip, if I would say, when building those relationships, those networks, and don't expect immediate results. Just invest in meaningful relationships, and sometime down the road, they may you may get some benefit. But don't kind of help people or network with the expectation that you need to get immediate result or something out of it. Just go and enjoy that relationship, enjoy the event, enjoy the conversation.
So both the things, working on yourself and what you get out of this entire process, it's a long process. Nothing's going to happen overnight. Thank you so much to all three speakers. You've been wonderful, shared some great advice. And of course, we've listed so many introvert strengths. For the viewers who are still with us, I'd like to just tell you that, there's a long list of introvert strengths that you get as a bonus in the link that we will be sharing with you in the post communication of this webinar. So we will be sharing the link to this book, Quiet Lessons for the Introvert Soul, within which there's another link that you can click on and get 100, if I'm not wrong, Gabriela?
Yeah, more than 100.
Yes, more than 100 strengths, introvert strengths that, you can use to get better in your journey and tell others that, it's not a negative thing, for sure. So thank you once again for joining us. It has been lovely speaking to all of you. You can see on your screens the name of the book. We will also be sharing that. I see that's a question that has been asked. And we're so sorry if we weren't able to answer your question. We'll make sure that we compile this. And any question that was left unanswered, we will get answers to those and share that with you as well. Now, of course, we have more sessions lined up for you in the coming weeks, and watch out for this space as Café New Canadians gets interesting sessions to you every single week, topics that matter to newcomers. Connect with us on social media on all these platforms that you see on your screen. You can also subscribe to our e-newsletter. These are ways to also stay updated about our content and get these updates about the upcoming sessions as well. It has been lovely having you. We'd, of course, like to know a little bit about how we have performed today. So please take a minute before you exit and answer the survey. This will help us perform better the next time, maybe, serve you better for sure. Thank you once again to the participants, to the guest speakers. It has been lovely having everyone over here.